Howdy everyone, Pocho here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we are covering the awakened skills for the Beastmen. Now this is probably the faction I wanted to cover the most because I think this goes to show how influential the awakening skills can be. Now you're not going to be able to see it straight away because I'll do battle reports later on, but I can promise you that just a few changes like they have done for Valar and Rogero can make a huge impact in battle. And out of all the Awakening factions so far, Beastmen are by far my favorite. So I'm actually going to cover Valar first and then Rogero because I'm really excited for Rogero. He has been one of my favorite heroes since his release. I just think his concept is really cool, but he's always been lackluster for the simple reason that he wastes a turn, and this can be dated back to times like Sharazar. Though Sharazar was never meta worthy, his biggest downfall was his transformation, his mimic, whatever you want to call it. The fact that he had to use an ability and then wait a turn is, and this is already giving a bit of a spoiler about Rogero, was harmful, especially in the game today where things are so fast paced they need to happen right away. But we'll cover that when we get to it. Valar. What is happening to Valar? Starting with his basic rendering strike. Pretty straightforward. It's the same as most other awakened basic abilities. He's getting more damage, but he is getting a bonus, which I think is good, especially since a lot of the other skills just get a damage increase. With this, you are now applying a debuff to the enemy that increases the damage taken by 100% instead of 70%. So it's not horrible. I mean, increased damage and increased damage debuff. Is it worth ascending? I mean, compared to some of these other abilities, not really, but it's good to see there's extra things to it. Moving on to his second ability, Panther's Fury. Even though he's a lion. So blocks any target ability regardless of class. Now, in the text, it prevents melee damages, range damages, and healers from using their special ability skills for 2 turns. It says it here as well, but with the Awakening, blocks any target's ability regardless of class. I think that is huge. I love this. Very simple, but very effective. You're not limited to these characters because sometimes you verse a team combination that doesn't have a lot of these. Like, I think melee damages and rogues are probably the most common enemies to see on a team. Range damages, I mean, yeah, but not really. Tanks, I mean, you got your Lion Goes and your Lion Goes and that other tank. There's Lion Go, and your melee damages are Morrigan as well, and probably just Theodore, and then that other Morrigan. So yeah, you see there's a lot of specific types of characters, but now that this can be extended to any class is awesome. I think that's really huge. You could definitely work battles a little bit more in your favor. You do want to lock down the healer. Do you want to lock down the tank? Maybe you want to stop. For example, maybe Lion Go does put the debuff on all your heroes, and you're worried that the Morrigan is going to sweep through and put everyone to sleep. You could, the speed isn't going to line up. This isn't an actual situation, but you could go ahead and use this ability and lock down, depending on the situation. I think it's good. I like it. Yeah, definitely worth it, I think. Onto his third ability, Golden Shield. Cast Blindness on all enemies for 1 turn, reducing accuracy to 0. This is pretty big. I mean, Beastmen have never really been in the spotlight. I mean, there was a time where they were good, but have they ever been, like, everyone's wondering how to kill them? I think this is massive. You're getting a whole turn. Obviously, it's a debuff, so it can be purged, cleansed. But to just give your whole team just 1 turn of just doing whatever, assuming that, the enemy doesn't have gonna hit enemies regardless. It's pretty much Artist. It's what Artist does. His blindness, and that can set up the Archons. So That's really, really good. I like this. I would definitely consider giving this an awakening, because it's a lot of what's the word, utility? Yeah, utility on the battlefield. It's to blind enemies for one turn. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to do that and help set up your team? Especially when you got characters like Rock and Rogero who need a bit of setup. Go for it. Absolutely. I would, if I was building Beastmen, I would definitely upgrade this skill. Moving on to his Legends of the Sand. This is his. Whoop! Didn't mean to scroll in there. Sorry. This is his leadership ability. While Valar has no provocation, the damage received by other allies is reduced by 50%. So we're incorporating a little bit of that orc feeling. You know, orcs, how they just get ridiculously, and assassins, how they just got ridiculously insane damage mitigation. Now the Beastmen are getting that, assuming that Valar doesn't have provocation, but he quite often does. So this is huge, but it's also, I mean, he's going to have provocation up a lot of the time, so remember that. And then increases damage done by allies, attacks against all enemies. So we all know Valar increases the damage to all enemies. It is 120%. So the attack damage of Beastmen allies targeting all enemies is increased by 120%, and for other allies it's 40%. Now it's 150%, so a 30% damage increase for Beastmen, and 75% for non-Beastmen allies, which I think is almost more significant than the Beastmen one, because at the moment Valar and Rock, sometimes Rogero, these are very, very efficient characters in Cradle of Chaos. This extra damage is going to help clear a lot of waves a lot quicker. So, yeah, he takes away the ability to crit from AoE abilities, but the damage increase is a lot better now, a lot better, and I think it's going to give him a lot more use. So, this is huge. I like this. I would definitely upgrade this. I would upgrade this simply for Cradle of Chaos. Better attempts, better runs, faster runs, more efficient runs. Moving on to his passive, the Desert Knight. Critical attack damage against allied beastmen is reduced by 50%. Oh my god. So, I mean, this isn't even related to provocation. Just straight up crits are doing 50% less damage, and then if he doesn't have taunt or provocation on, they're dealing 50% less damage anyway. So, I mean, beastmen are got a lot more utility from this. This is... He would probably be one of the better awakened heroes, I think. I think Valar gets a lot to his kit. It makes him a lot better leader. It... At the moment, I think it pretty much pushes Wukong right out of the leadership slot. It reminds me a bit of the Wild Elves. You know, they've got Sandariel, who is the leader, and then they've got Gloriana. But who in their right mind uses Sandy as the leader? This is the same case here, I think. I think Wukong is pretty much out of the spotlight as a leader. Definitely not as a useful character. He's still very much useful, especially in a Valar team. But as a leader of the faction, I think the crown now moves to Valar. Who knows what will happen with Wukong awakening? But at the moment, I mean, there's no reason to pick Kong over Valar. So overall, I think massive upgrades to Valar. Overall, the only ability I wouldn't focus on awakening is his basic. Moving on to Rogero, probably my favorite in terms of the awakened heroes in this batch. I'm going to try and speed through this because he has 7 abilities, and I talked for 8 minutes on Valar. So let's speed it up. Okay, his basic ability removes all buffs from the target under damage, increased debuff. So this is stepping away from just increased damage. Now you have the ability to remove buffs, all buffs. I think that is maybe worth considering an upgrade for. Removing buffs from enemies, always huge. Deals damage to one target. So there is something in his kit, I'm sure, that applies this to enemies. But yeah, not the worst one we've seen that for basics anyway. Second ability, increase the initiative of 2 random allies by 60%. So reduces the initiative of targets by 60% and casts debuff and increases damage taken by 50%. So this hasn't been added to the text. Now, 2 random allies increase their initiative by 60%. And I do believe that one of those allies, I think it can be Rogero as well. So that's 60% increase initiative by 60%. That is massive. 2 allies just getting a 60% initiative reduction, increase, sorry, not reduction, is, yeah, not bad. Not bad for the Beastmen as well, especially when they need to get in there. Third ability, shapeshifting. This is where he starts to get interesting. This is what I was talking about with Charizard, and the whole point of them being useless is the fact that they're wasting a whole turn, and so much can happen in a turn. But now when he shapeshifts, gains 100% initiative when turning into Direwolf. Now, you consider that with Valar now as the leader and AoE damage being increased, and Valar being able to apply the Beastman mark, which can be triggered by Rogero, which increases damage. This is this is probably one of the most influential awakenings out of all the awakenings in the first batch. Those 2 heroes combined now can output so much damage so quickly. Valar applies Beastman mark, blinds the enemy. Rogero takes a turn. His second turn comes around after the blindness has been dished out. He transforms. He gets an instant second turn. He can use his AoE ability, which does huge damage, and now triggers the Beastman mark. It's a lot. It is a lot, and I have seen it in action, and it is scary. It is really scary. Moving on to his passive, we have Catcher. While Rogero is in human form, damage taken by him is reduced by 50%. So again, consider Valar's ability to reduce damage by 50% when he hasn't got provocation, to reduce crit damage by 50%, and now Rogero comes along with another 50% reduction in damage. This guy has been built to just survive until he can go into his wolf form and absolutely terrorize everything. He is a menace. So those are his basic abilities. Now we'll go into the transformation. So here is his sweeping slashes. Not a huge awakening. Makes sense. It would be too much if this had a crazy awakening, but lowers the shield damage reduction. So at the moment, if the enemy has shields, he deals 90% less damage. That has been reduced to 50% less damage. So I think it's significant. I almost don't wish this was a thing. I really, really liked that he was weak against shielded enemies. I think there needs to be more things like this where heroes have a really obvious weakness. Like, it's been built into them that they just perform poorly against certain classes. Because shielding in the game at the moment is just a thing that's there. It's not something you ever really worry about because you can burn through it relatively quickly. I think one of the most terrifying shielding abilities in the game is Belladonna. I was going to say Belladonna. If you resurrect and the enemy has a Belladonna, then everyone goes 100% shield. That is scary. That's almost everyone getting a second bar of health. So that's scary. So now that, Rogero is going to be able to deal more damage to shielded enemies, I don't think it was necessary. I'm not against it. I just really enjoyed that he had a weakness, that it was built into him, that there was something that was designed to counter him. I don't know how he actually could have awakened this. I don't want to think about it right now. I mean, his kit's pretty insane. Moving on to Deafening Howl. Cast Smell of Blood on all allied beastmen. The effect is lost upon turning human. So, Smell of Blood. Cast 4 stacks of Smell of Blood on itself. With each stack, the Direwolf deals 6% more damage. Stack limit 10. All stacks are removed when the hero shapeshifts back into Rogero. So, from how I understand this, and if Playcott corrects me, I'll mention it somewhere. But how I understand this is the enemies will get the Smell of Blood, which will increase Rogero's damage. This will exceed the 10 stack limit. He can get a stack limit of 10, but other enemies on other allies having this stack would technically exceed it. So that's how I don't believe it would boost their damage. I think it would boost his damage. That's how I understand it working. I mean, it's not a significant thing. If I've got it wrong, I can correct it in the battle report if so. Moving on to his final passive, Bestial Spirit Awakening. While enemies are under an effect that prevents them from attacking the direwolf, every instance of damage dealt by direwolf has a 35% chance to extend this form by 1 turn per attack. The extension limit of each, so he can only extend it by 1 turn. But I mean, to go 1 more turn in direwolf is a huge advantage to him. That's where all his damage is coming from, is his direwolf and his sweeping strikes. That's all that you care about. And if he gets another turn of performing that damage, oh, it's scary. It is really scary. Really scary. Yeah, like I said, I think Rogero has probably had the most insane awakening transformation. Again, you're not going to prioritize the basic attack. Now I'm thinking. I don't know how these abilities line up with his human form abilities. I'm assuming that these are just like his human form abilities, where you upgrade one and the connected ability upgrades as well. So I don't know. I don't think he's... Surely his... Let me go back 2 pictures. Sweeping slashes. Surely this isn't connected to his basic attack. If it is, you may have to upgrade his basic. That's interesting. I'll double check on that. But you may have to upgrade his basic. I don't know what the connection is between his human form abilities. Obviously, his passive is his passive. I think this would be his ultimate ability. So similar to his transformation. And this may be his basic. If anyone has an unupgraded Rogero who hasn't upgraded the skills, I'd be interested to know. If you upgrade his basic, does this skill upgrade as well? Let me know if you haven't upgraded him and you're willing to throw a skill cube or 2 into him. Be very interesting to know. But yeah, other than that, I can't wait to show you the battle report for the Beastmen. They are now I would class them a top tier team. But don't go invest in them yet. Just let me do the reports first so you can actually see it in action. And you may be disappointed or surprisingly surprised. Yeah, because I was. So, yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer it to the best of my ability wherever around the world. Until next time, please take care of yourself.